The Silence After Roswell Part 1 of 3. This is part 1 of 3 in the story, The Silence After Roswell. Settle in, let the shadows press close, and travel with me to a summer night in 1947, where the ordinary desert hush of Roswell gave way to something impossible, and the world learned what it meant to be afraid of the dark. The desert, they say, never forgets. Every passing storm, every secret buried by the wind, every strange blue light seared through the night, they all leave their marks. Yet the people of Roswell, New Mexico, believed they lived beyond the world's mysteries. By the July of 1947, the war was over, the crops were tall, and the only excitement in town came from weekend dances at the Masonic Hall and rumors of test flights from the nearby Army airfield. The stories that passed along Main Street were mostly of lost dogs, stubborn tractors, and summer rain. But there are storms that rip up more than just dirt, and there are nights when the sky itself seems to crack open and let something else come crawling through. Jesse Braxton felt it first, a pressure, a tension, an itch under his skin he couldn't scratch, as he wandered from barn to fence line on the afternoon of July 2nd. With his wife May, he had tilled, seeded, and harvested this land for more years than he cared to count. It was honest soil, but it sure as hell wasn't easy. He squinted at the fat clouds heaving up from the northwest and told May, "Reckon we're in for rain, finally." Maybe more. May only nodded, feeling it too, the way the birds watched the sky and the cattle stuck together in the farthest reach of the pasture. By dusk, the light had gone wrong. Sun should have blazed peach and gold, but instead the horizon boiled with strange, oil-sheen colors, green, violet, and electric blue. Jesse found Tiggs, the border collie, whining, one paw raised, staring up at a blank sky. The air had that metallic taste, like the aftermath of an electrical fire, and his sweat dried cold on his arms. Thunderheads gathered. The first boom jutted the porch floorboards and set the lamp swaying. But there was more, a sound beneath, not thunder, not wind, but a rising vibration, low and steady, like the earth itself humming through his boots. Jesse glanced at May. She met his gaze for just a heartbeat. They didn't speak. They both felt it. Lightning ripped sky from soil. Long, deliberate flashes broken by moments of perfect, unnatural darkness. Between each, the landscape looked alien. The storm swooped in as a single, wild rush, a wall of wind and sound. Drops of rain hammered the roof, but cooled nothing. Then, after only a few minutes, the rain stopped, thunder faded, and a massive hush slammed down across the ranch. That was the moment. A shriek overhead, higher than any fighter plane from the base, more like a metal scream than an engine. It faded away, replaced by a blue-white radiance outside the northern windows, cutting through the storm's tail. May was the first to the window, heart pounding deep enough to feel each beat in her teeth. Jesse followed. Through the trembling glass, they saw the north pasture bathed in rotating, pulsing light, the color of frozen blue fire. The grass glistened. For a split second, there was movement within the light, impossible shapes shifting, then the glow snapped abruptly out. Nothing moved. Even the frogs had fallen silent. They stood there, half expecting the night to resume its natural rhythm. Instead, the clock in the parlor froze at 11:23. When May tried the lamp, it fizzed, bulb stuttering out with a sound like a whisper. The radio, already spotty that day, whined, a rush of static interrupted by a heavy, strobing ticking that didn't belong to any broadcast Jesse knew. He checked the fuses, then the breaker, then the switch at the pole outside, but every answer was the wrong one. Just the storm, he tried to tell May, but even he could hear the hollowness. Sleep didn't come easy. Both lay listening to the soft tick of cooling walls, and Tig's claws as she paced restlessly from room to room. When Jesse finally dropped off, he dreamed, not of the fields but of spinning lights, metal shining with a cold fire, an endless voice calling his name through echoing silence. The next sunrise seemed almost cruelly normal. The world was scrubbed clean, the sky painfully bright. Jesse's boots thudded over the gravel as he headed for the north pasture. He took his shotgun, just in case, though he couldn't say against what. At first, everything looked as it should. The earth was still, the air thick with that morning after-rain smell. Then he came over the rise and saw the trench, a groove 40 feet wide, burned down to mud, stretching a quarter-mile through the best stand of sweetgrass. Around it, crushed bushes, fence posts sheared off clean, and everywhere, scattered like woodland leaves, were fragments, bits of shining, silvery material and dull, black glass, twisted into brutal, unfamiliar shapes. Jesse crossed himself, then crouched and picked up a piece no bigger than his palm. It was too light, like the husk left behind by a cicada. When he tried to bend it, it gave but didn't break. Strange patterned marks ran over the back, nothing he could read, nothing like welds or rivets either. Some areas were cold and slick, others stung the skin as if charged. He kept 2 fragments, hiding them in his shirt pocket before the morning's wind scattered dust over everything. When he finally called May over, she stood beside him, her lips moving in silent prayer. Jesse called Sheriff Butler, who arrived before noon, trailing a slow, stunned deputy. Both men stared longer than they asked questions. Sheriff Butler sent a runner to the radio, and by the next hour Roswell Army Airfield arrived. 4 trucks, 12 uniformed soldiers, 2 men in plain black suits. The area became a camp, soldiers hammering metal stakes, stringing up worn canvas sheets, barking curt orders. A young captain in crisp fatigues pulled Jesse aside. "Did you see the crash? Did you photograph it? Did you or your wife touch anything?" The words spilled out like ammunition. May, questioned on the porch, insisted she saw nothing but the light, heard nothing but the wind. Both Braxtons were told to remain in the house until further notice. By evening, more soldiers had arrived. The artifacts were swept up, every fragment, every twisted scrap, every singed blade of grass. Notebooks were filled. Geiger counters clicked and complained. The men in suits took measurements, wrote furiously, and one, Jesse noticed, seemed to quiz everyone about unusual dreams or missing time. The first rumor broke all at once. The local radio declared, "Army Airfield captures flying disc on ranch." It was a startling, thrilling phrase. That night at Dot's Diner, the news spread like prairie fire. Flying disc, crashed saucer, alien ship, people's faces glowed with a mixture of terror and awe. But by the next morning, the Army's story changed. The same radio station corrected itself, merely a downed weather balloon, no disc, no saucer, nothing unusual at all. A few in Roswell relaxed. Most did not. Later that week, unmarked cars began to glide through town after sunset, their windows rolled up despite the heat. Men in neat, unremarkable suits entered the grocery, the hardware store, the gas station, quietly asking if anyone had found anything strange, any metal, anybody behaving odd. Old Mrs. Hammond, who'd seen Jesse carrying a lantern out late the night of the storm, clammed up when 2 of these men knocked on her door. She told neighbors, "They looked at me like I wasn't there at all." In those days, things stopped working. Farmers' watches slowed, then halted. Radios snapped to static and stayed that way for minutes, as if refusing to transmit anything but uncertainty. More than one dog ran yelping from shadowed corners at dusk, disappearing into the hills to never come back. Strange rust marks crept across every truck's chrome. Some, like young Jason Mathers, thought it was all just a story. He was 12, his father a mechanic at the airfield, and he'd heard the base gossip, plots and lies, his father called them. But Jason's curiosity gnawed at him. He'd seen more army trucks on Main Street than ever before, and at night, from his bedroom window, he'd caught a blue glow down beyond the Braxton silo, as if the sky was keeping a secret. Jason's best friend, Lucas Mendoza, lived one farm over. That Friday, they dared each other to sneak up to the Braxton's fence after dark. Flashlights in hand, they crept through zoysia grass, hearts pounding, closer to the cordoned-off area. The place was silent except for a gentle, humming pulse that seemed to vibrate through the soles of their shoes, making their teeth ache. The night after the storm lingers in the thoughts and dreams of Roswell's people. Curiosity and unease settle like dust. Two young boys, pursuing the shadows and rumors, are about to learn that some mysteries in the desert stare right back at you. Darkness in the desert is like nowhere else. Moonlight spills but seems to stop short at the edges of the fields, and every sound carries as if the world is empty but for you. For Jason Mathers and Lucas Mendoza, those first steps toward the Braxton fence felt like trespassing, against rules adults never spoke, against fears that had followed them from the radio, the shifting eyes of returning soldiers, and the way even stars seemed a little different that week. They edged close to the spot where the grass had died in an unnatural circle, flashlight beams dancing in nervous arcs. Jason wanted to turn back. They didn't belong out here, not in the dark, not after everything that had happened. But Lucas kept moving. "I bet there's still something out here," he whispered. Something the army missed. The field felt wrong. The dirt was oddly hard and brittle. Tufts of burnt grass crunched under their sneakers. Each breath brought that metallic tang. Jason nearly tripped over a half-buried fragment, no bigger than his thumb, a sliver shining faintly even with his hand over the light. Closer, it buzzed against his skin, cold but vibrating. Lucas ran fingers over it, then dropped it as if stung, cursing quietly. They pressed forward, drawn by the fear as much as the thrill. A twisted shard big as a lunchbox glimmered at the very center of the scar. This fragment was different, engraved deep with patterns, spirals and dots that seemed almost to shift when the beam of the flashlight passed over them. Jason reached out gingerly. His fingers brushed the surface and the world seemed to shrink to a pinhole. He heard a click, then 3 quick, soft pulses, like code slipping from metal to bone. Both boys froze. A sound, a layered hum, part vibration, part whisper, rolled over the field. The flashlight beam flickered, then steadied. Lucas gripped Jason's arm, wide-eyed. Something was moving, not in the grass, but in the stillness itself. A wave of presence so strong it set the old fence wire to singing on its posts. Suddenly the sky snapped open. A vast, diffuse blue glow blanketed the pasture, and the whole world was cast for an instant in its cold, hungry light. For what might have been just a single second or an entire lifetime, all sound stopped. No breath, no heartbeat, not even the distant cough of a night hawk interrupted the silence. Then it was gone. The desert claimed its darkness again. The boys, trembling, turned and ran with the fragment still clutched in Jason's fist, never daring to look back until they'd cleared the last fence and felt the safe, narrow weight of their own front yards pressing in around them. They barely slept. Every time Jason closed his eyes, the cold, spiraled symbols burned into memory. Jason hid the metal shard beneath his mattress. Lucas swore he felt the clicking echo in his jaw for hours. Neither told their parents. Both swore not to return. But they weren't the only ones who saw the blue light that night. Across town, Mrs. Finch watched her porch thermometer vibrate and then simply explode, mercury dripping like quicksilver onto the slats. 2 miles south, Officer McKinney and Deputy Holt, patrolling late, swerved their cruiser off the near-empty highway when the blue beacon streaked over the fields. The next morning, the Army base was abuzz, with rumors of missing time, radios dead, and 2 radar screens that spun aimlessly for over an hour, registering phantom traces before suddenly resetting to 0. Rumors at Dot's Diner grew wild. The cook said a government man asked, too casually, about unusual dreams. The mail clerk claimed his truck clock spun ahead to midnight, though he swore it hadn't been past 10. To most, these were just stories, the stuff of nervous minds. But as days passed, even the town's skeptics grew quiet. Mae Braxton, alone one afternoon while Jesse drove into town, heard the dog begin to whimper again. She looked out and saw shadows move just beyond the ruined grass, darker than the dusk, shaped more like suggestion than body, passing in a coordinated, impossible slither. She locked the doors, and, for good measure, the windows too. The official story changed again. The base commander presented to local press, weather balloon debris, nothing more. Polite smiles, little laughter. But back in the pasture, the grass still would not grow, and the ring of burned soil seemed darker every sunset. One evening, 3 plain sedans rolled up the Braxton Drive. The men inside, government but with no badges or names, asked to come in. Their eyes flicked constantly at the windows and corners of the house. They sat Jesse and Mae down together and asked them, with relentless care, if they had kept any mementos. It wasn't a threat, not direct, just a slow tightening of the air. Jesse lied. Mae nodded along. When the visitors finally took their leave, one paused and turned. He said, "If you notice anything strange, dreams or anything out of place, we'd appreciate a call. We want to keep things safe." He paused, gaze lingering on the heavy barn door, "for everyone." Mae waited until they'd gone, then fetched the flour tin where they'd hidden the first fragments. She and Jesse stared, silent, unsure if the desert itself was now keeping watch. In the next days, it seemed the whole town was being watched. Kids playing too close to fence lines were called home. Jason swore 3 men in matching hats followed him for a block, not breaking stride as he doubled back toward Main Street. Farmers found deep, perfect circles pressed in their fields in the morning, grass blackened, no tracks leading in or out. The clocks continued their rebellion against time, and, for more than one household, yawning gaps of lost memory became frighteningly common. But the strangest were the dreams. They came to almost everyone, as if the town shared a single mind. Drifting shapes, light brighter than the sun, voices without edges murmuring truths that ached as soon as they woke. In every dream, someone waited on the far edge of the field, out of sight, out of time. Each night the silence thickened, as if the land itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what they would do next.